Well, I'm back again. Today is not going to be so much as a Bible study. I've been wrestling with this a lot of the night and all morning. And I've actually been putting it off all afternoon. I've been looking at what's happening around the country today. And I had a lot of questions, and I've been asking myself and trying to look for answers. And, when I get looking at this stuff and I get thinking about the riots and the officer that killed the man, and it's really absolutely sad what's happening in this country. Uh, you know, I don't even know why it can even be happening. And then I got asking God. When we look at this and we look at the things, and it's real easy to say, and I watched the video and it's abhorrent. I don't care if it's black, white, pink, or purple people. What happened was wrong. I don't understand how we can have somebody that is in the police force that can do something like that. I don't know his life. I don't know his background. Even the one that he had down on the ground. I don't understand. But I do understand this part. What the officer did was wrong, but what's just happening on the streets with the rioting and the burning and the destruction is every bit as wrong as what the officer did. To God, sin is sin. Whether you commit a murder or you tell a lie. And how can this be that people can't see that? How can they go destroy their own city, their own streets, their own communities because they get mad at a police officer? How can they hate every officer that's in uniform when the majority of them are good? It's just like looking at the people on the streets up there rioting. Can I blame everybody in Minneapolis for what they're doing? No, because I figure the majority of the people in Minneapolis are good and not doing that. So who is to blame? So I want you to, I'm just going to throw some things out, and I'm sure I'm going to make everybody mad, from pagans to Christians that sitting in the pew to even pastors in the pulpit. Because right now, everything I'm looking at, we're all at fault. I got thinking, we look at these cities and, is it because the young people don't have opportunities, or the lack of education, or, or just doing without so much stuff that we just don't know what to do? And I got thinking of that. And you know what? That is just there in a symptom of the real problem. It ain't the lack of education or that. That ain't the problem. It ain't the problem where they live. It ain't the problem with money. But it's a heart problem of sin. We have sat there and raised a generation without Jesus because we've allowed it. I'll bet up there it's almost like it is where I live. You can almost go down any street and find a church. So why are we not making a difference? Sadly, today's church has become so weak and ineffective. We're too busy sitting on our bottoms in the pews, listening to the preaching, listening to the music, raving about the programs our church has for everybody, but we're forgetting to do what Jesus did. Why are we not reaching out? Why are we not getting the message outside the door of the church? Why is God's people not getting off their bottoms and getting up and screaming it for the rooftops the love of Jesus, and demanding, when our government become so evil and start approving of stuff that God says is wrong or an abomination and sit there and keep our mouths shut. It is time to wake up, church. And I ain't talking about the label over the door. I'm talking about the church, the body of Christ. I don't care if you're a Church of Christ, Baptist, Methodist, Catholic, or anything else. The church is the people that has accepted Jesus. It is not the building. You know, like I said, this is more of a rant than it is a study today. How can we break this down? I mean, we got politicians right now supporting the largest murder, the way to murder in the world, and it's called abortion. Jesus himself said, if you harm the hair of even one of the littlest one of these, it's better to have a millstone put around your neck and cast into the sea. And what do? We sit on our bottom and says, well, that's what the law says. How about what God says? It's time to speak up. I hate to say it, I've been listening to Phil Robertson of Duck Dynasty, and I've just fell in love with that man. He says he don't care what the people thinks, he only cares what Jesus thinks, and it's about time we all start doing the same thing. So let's look at some of this. What has brought it on? Hey, we've allowed people to start living for their pleasure of everything. If it feels good, do it. If it's right for you, it's okay. Forget about what God says. 10 Commandments don't matter. Do you know what it says? No. But people nowadays, I'm going to do whatever I want. Sex, drugs, alcohol, anything that I think is going to give me pleasure. Oh, it's okay. You don't have to worry about what God says. Well, why do they not know any better? Because God's people are being too quiet and not saying nothing. Heck, I know Christian people that has kids, and they'll say, well, we've told them we don't want them to have sex out of marriage, but they're going to do it anyway? No, that's the wrong attitude to have. Let's teach them. Let's teach them early. You know what? What's wrong setting them down, and especially when they get a girlfriend and saying, hey, here's the consequences. Here's what God says. Here's what we expect. Warn them about how easy it is to cross the line if they get in a car parked somewhere and how easy it is to go overboard and let their emotions get carried away. After all, we are responsible for raising our children in the ways of the Lord, not the world, and we're letting the world do it. What else have we taught? Selfishness. You know how many times I've been in the store and see these kids grab stuff and throw screaming fit out of selfishness, and a parent, oh, now, Johnny, don't do that. How about snatch them up and bust their butts? God says, spare the rod, spoil the child. Now, I ain't talking about beating them, but I am talking about correcting them. Man, I'm proud to know I have a grandson. Yes, he got spankings. And I'm going to tell you, he has grown up, and he's 18 now, and the most wonderful grandson in the world. And when people comes and tells me how great he is and how polite he is and how loving he is and how he helps older people and younger people and he cares, he didn't get that by accident. He was raised that way. Christians, teach about the evils of selfishness. On top of that, how selfish can we be? I hate to say it, Christians are just as selfish as other people. How many of us get caught up in things and stuff that we own that make it so important that sometimes we even put it for God? Materialism. You know what? I just got a short time to live because of cancer. And God has showed me some of this stuff I used to think was important. The room I'm sitting in right now, I have a camera, old antique camera collection. Used to think it was important. Is that going to heaven with me? No. It make any difference in my salvation? No. It's stuff. It's not important. Instead of teaching our children and the world that whoever gets the most stuff is the most successful, no. You know, whoever shows the love of Jesus and shares him and does his work is the most successful. This other stuff ain't worth nothing. How do we expect a whole generation to understand the love of Jesus and what right and wrong is when, like I said too, go back and you look at what we allow the kids. We don't teach them. We approve of the sexual revelation. I mean, when we keep our mouth shut about immorality, we're even accepting of the ones that we send to Congress that we know the stuff they do that goes against God and they're immoral people, and then we put them up there to make laws to govern us. What is wrong with us people? What is wrong with Christians today? What is wrong with the church? It's time we looked at ourselves. It's time we got on our knees in prayer. It's time we started admitting to God that we have not been faithful and asked forgiveness and not only healed the land of this country, but our church. Yes, I'm passionate right now. And believe me, I've put this off for several hours because I didn't want to come out with it. And I know this is what I'm supposed to say. And I didn't want to. Man, I was almost ready to run and just shut off and say, forget it. And he just wouldn't let me forget it. I look up there now and I'll see these riots. And I can understand being angry. There's times I get angry. I shouldn't, like I do. But you know what? Sometimes we sin in that anger. And what is the danger of anger? Yeah, we had an officer. I don't know if he was angry or not. To me, it looked like he was. A man died. Should he have been angry? No. We need to control our anger. Should the people there be running up and down the streets out of anger, burning, destroying their own neighborhood, destroying jobs that their neighbors needed for their livelihood, businesses that's owned by friends and neighbors? No. What does God tell us? Don't sin in our anger? Actually tells us if we're angry without cause at somebody, it's just like committing a murder. Think of that. Why do they not understand that? Why do they have such anger problems? Is it because they don't know Jesus? That they don't know the peace that can come from him? That they don't know how to pray and let that anger go back to prayer and give it to Jesus and let him strengthen them and help them? Where does that come from? The church is ineffective. I guess you see where I'm going. I'm putting a huge amount of this back on the church because we're not doing what Jesus told us to do. He told us to go into all the world, preach the gospel. What do? We sit on the pews, listen to music, have a lot of programs, get a lot of entertainment, and don't do nothing. After all, it might make us feel bad or might make somebody else feel bad. Or it might not be politically correct. I don't care if it's politically correct. It's time we quit worrying about being politically correct and start standing up for Jesus and start being Jesus correct. After all, the maker of the heavens and the earth sits there and tells us to do something, and we're going to worry about the man that can take my soul and send it to hell, or am I going to worry about the man that sits up there in Congress and says, you ain't politically correct? You better start thinking about that, people, because I think we got a lot of people in churches that thinks they're saved and only have it in their head and have never truly accepted that relationship in their heart. And he's already told us, if you ain't got it in your heart, when you come before him, he's going to say, depart from me because I know you not. Better remember it. So we got all this going on up there. We got riots in the street. We got people burning buildings. And what do they think it's for? All for vengeance. Oh, they care so much about him, didn't they? He got killed. Well, they didn't care about him. And it ain't about vengeance. If it's about vengeance or caring for the man that got killed, they'd be in prayer. They'd be praying for his family. And you know what? They'd be praying for the officer and his family. I don't know what makes an officer lose control and do that. But I do know this. If it was evil, if it was bad judgment, or anything else, the man needs prayer. More than that, his family needs prayer. The man's family that died needs prayer. That community needs prayer for healing. But when you break out and you start going out and you're looting and you're stealing and you're burning, that is not vengeance. That is not retribution. That is not caring. That is selfishness, theft, and evil. There's no other way you can put it. The people that are doing the rioting is committing as much evil as that officer did. Church, are we praying for them today? Or are we just looking at it and say, oh, that's terrible? You know, I listened to one video, and there was somebody there, and it was in his family. And you know what she said? He would have never approved of the rioting. And one of the things God tells us is when somebody does something wrong, we have to forgive. Don't mean we have to accept it, but we have to forgive. Are there any forgiveness you see going on around this country now? We got people pointing fingers everywhere, whether it's political, whether it has to do with the riots or anything else, and blaming somebody else. And I'm going to admit, when I first started watching the riots, that was one of the things I was doing. And it showed me real quick I was wrong. And you know, I had to forgive some of the people I watched on there that I was just abhorrent watching them burn buildings. And you know why I had to forgive them? Because they don't know what they do. Even Jesus himself on the cross said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Are we doing that? I hope so. Don't have to agree with it. I still think they're wrong. I know it's sinful. God says, do not steal. He said, do not covet. You know, he goes the whole 10 commandments. And I'll assure you, almost every one of them is being broken right up there on the streets. I've listened to people on the internet talk about all them black people. Are they anywhere in the Bible where there's prejudice? That we're supposed to live by prejudice? No. You know, I'm white. I have friends that are black. I helped teach at a missionary training farm that were Korean. We cut ourselves, we all bleed red. We all have families we love. We may have different traditions, but we have different families. Did God just make everybody white and everybody else wrong? No. He made us all. And we're all made in his image. And we're all a trinity. We have a body, soul, and spirit. It don't matter what color we are. It only matters the character we show. And I'm going to tell you, if you're one of them churches that think, well, I don't want them kind of people in here, then shut the doors on it and quit causing the problem. Because God welcomes us all. And he don't care what color we are, how we dress, what race we are. He loves us all. Like I said, I'm just I just couldn't get away from this, and I'm sorry, I'm about to cry because it's so sad what I'm seeing. What are we having up here? Loss of respect of authority? Yeah. Why do we have that? Because we have Christians home that don't demand authority in our house. We let kids run wild. We've raised a generation for kids. Well, you can't be disciplined. You can't do this. Oh, this is a kid. 17-year-old. This is a kid. Bull cookies. 17 years old. You're old enough to know right from wrong. The only reason they're a kid because we don't let them grow up. And that's part of the church's fault. And why is it church's fault? Because we have raised generation with that God, so they don't know what it is to raise a family. All right, I'm going to get down to the one that's really going to upset me, even probably even going to upset my pastor. Because God laid something on me that I've never noticed until today. And this is what I actually read on MacArthur, and this is what they said. I'm going to read it word for word, and this is what got me on my rant. Where are the great leaders? Where are all the godly leaders? Where are the virtuous leaders? Where are the great and moral men and women? Where are they? Hosea said, like a priest, because they never be any better than their leaders, and now we see it. The sins of the fathers has reached to the third and fourth generation. You look at society and what do you see? Lust for pleasure, self and things, sexual perversion, anger, hate, vengeance, unforgiveness, prejudice, lack of respect for authority, civil rebellion, drunkenness, weak, foolishness, evil leadership that's more concerned about politics than about morality. Nobody can escape. I don't care if you're black or white. I don't care if you're yellow or brown or whatever those simple colors represent, the races of our world. Nobody can escape the devastating power of his own sin. The wretchedest of the heart, I will tell you this, that they may put the lid on it this week, but it will go off again. You know, this is what he's saying. He's talking about this thing. And this was something he had wrote back during the LA riots. And that's what I found. And man, I see so much truth in that. And then I see the ineffectiveness we're having in the church. And one of the problems I see today, and I ain't saying it's wrong, but I'm saying it's what's needed today, is we have too many churches. And as much as I like verse by verse in the Bible, nowhere do I see Jesus ever do an example of that in the Bible. When Jesus went anywhere, did he open up the scrolls and say, well, we're going to go this one, this one, this one, this one. Here's what it means. You know what? I don't need somebody to teach me how to read the Bible. I don't need to have somebody teach me how to go to verse for verse. I don't need to anybody come and go through the verse and teach me how Jesus was born. And today's church don't either. Today's church has become so weak because we may know what the Bible says verse by verse. But what we do need is we need people in the pulpit. We need pastors. We need preachers that will sit there and start looking around them, start seeing what the problems are in the area, where people needs help with their sin, get up there in that pulpit and preach on that topic, stomp all over our toes, and show us what we need to be different. We need preachers that'll get up in the pulpit and quit worrying about what the people out in the congregation thinks that, oh, they may fire me. Was you called of the church or was you called of Jesus? If you're called to the church, get your butt out of the pulpit. If you're called by Jesus, stand up there and use the power of God and let it sling and stomp all over us. Because that's what it's going to take to bring this church back to what Jesus intends. And then, church, when they do that, get off our bottoms out of that pew and let's go out and shout it from the rooftops. Let's change a generation. Let's make a difference. Let's let people see what sin is and the love of Jesus is. God says that when we do what he says, we're going to be persecuted. Are we so afraid to put up with a little persecution that we're willing to run and not admit that Jesus is the Lord of our life? Boy, I've been praying hard on this. And I know it's been a really, really, really harsh message. And I'm going to tell you, for the last 10 hours, I've been sitting here trying not to do it. But I really think this was what I was supposed to do. And I know it sounds hard and it sounds terrible. And I want you all to know I'm doing it out of love. Our country is in such a mess. And the church is not working to fix it. Our country, even when we have elections, Christians are not even getting out and speaking up and voting. You know, it's time to quit worrying about the entertainment in our buildings and all that. And let's turn back to Jesus. We're told if his people will humble ourselves, get on our knees and pray, he will heal our land. Don't you think it's time we done it? I had a little more and I just can't go no longer, people. I don't mean this to be offensive. I mean it to be in love. And maybe I didn't show that much love saying it. But I do pray that some of you will listen. So good afternoon. I'm going to take a prayer time. I hope every time one of you has watched this, you'll take time to pray. Hope you'll share it with other people. And I hope it makes a difference. I love you all. Bye-bye.